Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Budget Investing. Today I have just a quick update for you on what's happening in my portfolio, and from there I'm going to dive into what are some industries that you should maybe be looking at. I've been kind of looking at maybe restructuring my portfolio here a little bit about how my different industries and sectors are weighted, and I think I've identified two that might be positioned currently for a really big run up in the next little while, and I'll dive into that here shortly. So the first bit I want to look at is my portfolio balances. As you can see, I've finally broken that $10,000 range, so it's super exciting for someone like myself who has a pretty limited budget, and I'm only able to add just a little bit at a time. My unrealized gains are over 10% now, which is extremely exciting. Those numbers might go down just a little bit as I put some of my cash in. As you can see, I'm holding about $100 right now, just because I'm currently saving up to add a little bit more into some of my more expensive holdings. So it just takes me a couple of weeks to get the required cash to make those purchases. All right, so why have I been looking at potentially restructuring my portfolio a little bit, or at least in this case, adding some stocks that are in very specific industries? So of course here we're looking at the S&P 500 historically, and there have been different reasons why the market was really being pushed forwards and upwards. Of course, you had the oil and gas boom when everyone was finding oil. You had the dot-com, which obviously led into a crash, but it was a big boom. And you had residentials, and there were so many other things. And of course, today we're really looking at a crypto type market where that seems to be driving the market forward, is that technology piece and that, making world changing improvements. So over all of this time, a couple of things have been super consistent. First one was, of course, inflation to some degree every year. Prices go up higher and higher. That's why you're not able to afford to go to the movie theater for, under $10 or, a couple pennies and maybe a quarter like it was back in the day. It's like $50 now for one person. The two other things that I think have been consistent have been food and homes. Things change all the time where people put their money or what people buy for fun and anything else, but you've always needed a home throughout this time, and you always need to be buying food. So I think that those particular industries are something to maybe take a look into.
I think for the near term, the concerns definitely are justified. We think inflation is ticking up more than people expect, but we do think that more likely than not, it is going to be transitory and the market's going to be able to roll through it. We think short term, you're going to have volatility. There will be another bad inflation number or two bad inflation numbers, and the market might sell up, but we think ultimately inflation will start to drift a little bit lower, and the Fed is going to be able to maintain its current stance for a while.
I feel that clip there just continues to identify why prices continue to move up in the long term. Of course, there's going to be growth and more profits, but that inflation is ultimately what pushes prices higher and higher. So the first area where I think we can potentially benefit from that is in industrials and construction, things like that. You still need to have your home, and I'm sure everyone's seen this in the last few years or so. The price of raw materials is continuing to go up like crazy. This meme is maybe a bit of an exaggeration. You probably weren't able to get quite that much back in 2018, but in 2021, it is definitely a lot less. The price of lumber, for example, has almost tripled in the last little while. So how am I planning to capitalize on this? I'm looking at a company like Stella Jones. It has fantastic numbers, and the growth in the future is currently unknown because it might continue to go up higher and higher and higher. This is a company that is a leading producer of industrial wood products, things from, housing construction pieces to railroad ties and telephone poles. These are things that have to be made. You need to keep that infrastructure there, and they're continuing to grow. They have really fantastic numbers. They're in a position currently where their PE is quite low. They're making what appears to be more profits than what they are currently valued and priced at. They also fit into the category of what I like to look for in a dividend-paying company. Their payout ratio is really low. They're sitting around that 21%. Their 5-year dividend growth rate is over 10%, which is the magic number for me. And they've been growing their dividend for over 17 years. It's still really low today, but in the long term, it might continue to grow, especially if they're going to continue growing at greater than 10% year after year. Everything about this company truly does look really promising. They're in a good industry where things are continuing to grow. Inflation numbers are going to go higher, as we've heard. So I'm looking to capitalize on that, and everyone still needs homes, they still need electricity, and they still need products shipped to them from railway companies. So this is just a fantastic situation for myself. I'm going to be looking to potentially initiate a position into companies like this. The next industry that I've been looking at is, food supply and grocery chains. I feel like as inflation continues to move up, these companies are going to, of course, want to keep their margins and continue to improve their profits, but they don't want to go crazy, as they, of course, want people still coming into their grocery stores. So how do they do that? They get charged more from a company to, store their pop. Instead of them paying the company $1, they're not getting charged $1.05. So maybe they increase the price by, that 5 cents. They get to keep their margin, they get to keep their profits, and, they just ride along with inflation. And that ultimately is going to look like they're making more money because those numbers are going to continue to get bigger. So a company that I'm looking at that's I think is going to follow along in that trend, that's been positioned quite well, is Kroger. I know I've talked about them recently, but again, they're priced quite well. Their PE is fairly low, so I feel like if you're buying in right now, you're getting in at a decent value. You're going to continue to ride that wave upwards as the prices continue to improve. You're also getting a strong dividend-paying company. Their payout ratio is 25%, so it's really low, so they've got a lot of room to work with. They can continue to grow their dividend. They can use that money to pay for acquisitions or continue to grow their company in many other ways. Been doing it for over 15 years, which is fantastic. The growth rate is over 10%, and they're at a comfortable 1.8% yield. So they're positioned quite well. So these are the different industries that I'm currently taking a look into. I feel like they're positioned quite well for a lot of growth in the long term. And maybe they don't jump up quite as big and crazily as you might see in some tech industries or some of the other potential stocks that are out there. But I think that slow and steady growth is still growth to be happy with. It's a little bit safer of a play. I know that it's a company or an industry or a sector that I can hold for a really long time. I don't need to always be watching it to try and time it. This is a company or companies that are going to continue to slowly go up over time, pay me a strong, ever-growing dividend, and it's going to make me comfortable in the long term with a lot of money that I'm able to retire with in the long term. So if you enjoyed today's video, thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. Please don't forget to thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me to grow this channel. I'd love to hear from you. This community that we're starting to build here is fantastic. I do have great conversations with people, and I hope to continue that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.